All right, welcome Lynette and Rashida and those other early arrivers. Thanks for joining us tonight. Just give us a few more minutes and we'll get started once there's a decent amount of people on the call. All right, we'll just give it another 30 seconds here and then get started very shortly. Okay, so we have almost 20 people in the call. I think that's a good spot to get started, and I'm sure more will trickle in as we get started. But welcome everybody to tonight's JUMPinar series. This is Jumpstart Germantown's weekly webinar series that we've been hosting for, or sorry, not weekly anymore. I keep saying that because we did it like that for so long. But every couple of weeks we have these webinars, which we've been doing for the past couple of years now since COVID. And these are basically mini training sessions that cover topics in real estate development that we can't necessarily get to during our official training program. There's all sorts of things we cover, everything from construction to financing to refinancing and city government stuff. So it's full grab bag of topics. And tonight we have a very special one from being presented by a former Jumpstart graduate who was in all of your spots, very, very recently. And I'm excited to have a conversation with her about recovering from a failed project because that's something that more likely than not, you're going to encounter failure one day, and we need to know how to deal with it. And especially if you want to persist and make developing, your career, you gotta persevere through those. And Donna Tiffany has experience doing that and is going to be able to explain her tips to us tonight during our conversation. But before we get to that, I just want to remind everybody, if you're brand new, Jumpstart Germantown is a training program and a loan program, so you can sign up for our training program that's coming up here in a few months on October. I think it's October to the first week of November. So go ahead and apply now and enroll. You can get enrolled and RSVP and pay and get your spot confirmed. Or if you have already applied, be sure to check your email and see the registration instructions and everything for that. And also our loan program is open to accepting applications from developers for people's first time projects, or we're just looking to finance rehabs and help new developers like all you on the call get projects completed and do them the way that we're teaching you to. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. And Scotty, who's also on the call here, can put the links in our chat for both the loan program and the training program website. And if anybody has anything else they want to see links for, just let us know in the Q&A. But yeah, so I'm gonna rearrange my notes here and introduce my guest. Just a reminder, we will have a Q&A at the end of tonight's discussion, so around 7:40ish. Once we get through our outline here, then we'll switch to a live Q&A when all of you in the call can ask your questions, and Donna and I can go over them all at that point. But yeah, I think that's all the housekeeping, and I'll get started with our introduction for tonight. So thanks everybody for coming. But I just want to introduce Donna Tiffany Tull, who provides buyers and sellers with comprehensive guidance to fulfill their homeownership dreams. So from traditional home sales to property rehab, she has an array of real estate knowledge to offer. She's affiliated with the Conshohocken office of Caldwell Banker Realty, and Donna Tiffany specializes in first-time home buyers. As a former teacher and assistant principal, she enjoys educating her clients on the best practices to achieve their goals successfully. And she is also a graduate of the JUMPstart training program, and she has gone on to use our loan program to fund a project. And like I said, she's a wealth of knowledge and has been in the same position as many of you are as JUMPstart graduates or just people trying to learn, and has gone on to succeed. So I'm excited to introduce her and talk with her tonight. So Donna, why don't you say hi? How's it going?
All right. Hello. Thank you, Derek.
Awesome. Yeah, well, it's great to have you tonight, and I know I got a lot of questions for you, and I'm sure people will chime in with their questions as we get going. But I do want to first kind of ask you about your introduction to real estate development and kind of how you got to where you are. I know your bio mentioned you were a teacher and have some educating or educational experience. How did that translate into fixing up homes?
Let's see. Secret name of Monopoly. The family name.
Donna, I think your mic is cutting in and out a little bit. Could you either maybe be a little closer, or if you could turn it up, that would be great. Sorry.
How was that sounding?
There we go. That's good.
Yep, if you didn't hear me, I was saying it all started with the board game Monopoly.
Nice.
I was the relative that said, I want to buy, I want to buy, I want to buy,
Right.
not have any background, anything like that. Yes, I was a teacher. However, my mother loved to paint. She loved fixing up houses and things like that. But I wasn't that child that followed her around like, oh, I want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I was the child that was running away. Like when she said, I got to go paint a house, I'm like, I got something to do. So it was not my interest at all.
Mm-hmm.
However, getting older, teaching, and then HGTV happens to come on the show, and you're looking like, okay, maybe this is something I can consider. Was real estate the first on my list? Not really. Whenever people would bring opportunities to invest and make a good return on investment, let's try it. And so happened real estate caught me, and I've been enjoying it ever since.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And obviously you went through the JUMPstart program and got involved there. How did that fall into play? Did you have any development experience prior to going through JUMPstart, or was that kind of your first experience kind of learning about it?
Right, with JUMPstart. So prior to JUMPstart, and I have to commend my husband, he had bought a property from a friend of ours that was the realtor. Okay. And when that realtor helped us purchase our home, the realtor said, you need to try and get your license to be a realtor. I said, okay, I'll seize the moment. So I did. And in 2004, I became a licensed realtor.
Okay.
And then my husband said, I'm going to buy a property, an investment property. And I was looking at him like he was crazy. We were newlyweds and I wanted to do other things with the money and he wanted to go buy a house. It was the best thing he ever did, So that was our first project where I had full control, rehabbing it, finding a contractor, using our own money. And it has its ups and downs because I didn't know what I was doing, but it was definitely a launching pad and training ground for when I finally met up with JUMPstart. I believe they started in 2015. A friend of mine told me about it, and I was the first class. I was one of the first students, first class, and it took off ever since then.
Cool.
To Ken and his vision for Jumpstart and his mission behind it, because I would not be where I am today without having that foundation of Jumpstart giving us that jump start as new investors.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I knew you were a jump or a long-time Jumpstart graduate, but I didn't know you were involved in the very first program. So that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, as you probably know, we've expanded well beyond that, and now rather than having 15 people in a conference room, it's 130 people on a Zoom call. So it's yeah, definitely changed a bit, but I mean, clearly the success story stays the same, and I'm sure a lot has changed in the development world. I'm sure since you took the Jumpstart class, and I'm sure we teach things a little bit differently. But regardless, the principle is the same, right? It's about how to get in there and become the primary leader in the project, and really make it for something for yourself, right? And help achieve financial freedom, and kind of like get away from the 40-hour work week mold that we get into, right? So let me ask you. So what was your transition like, into real estate development when you started? Like, I know you mentioned that you and your husband went in on this project in the early 2000s, right? And then after the Jumpstart class, did you eventually think, okay, maybe I can loan money or borrow money to do a project and do it more in a business sense? Is that how it worked?
so after Jumpstart, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was like, I'm ready to go. I got this down packed. I have an opportunity. And it's just allowing new novice investors an opportunity just to start.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So in 2015, once the class was done, being a realtor, which was great, I had access to the MLS and seeing what properties were out there.
Mm-hmm.
I found a home in Germantown, which was perfect,
Mm-hmm.
for $25,000. All right, 25,000. So did the paperwork, the performer, the loan. And those of you that are new, I was clueless about what a performer is. I said, is that an English word? Like, what is performer? Like, so I don't want you to think because you knew and don't know quite a bit, I didn't know any of it either. Right. But now you have such a large network of people that have been there. Talk to them, chat their ear. They will be willing to share what they learned, including myself. So I got this first property. And I know it was one of the first ones because my loan number, it was 00007.
Yeah, nice. That's great.
I don't know what number you're on, but yeah, I was like, okay.
Right.
So is it okay to share that experience of the first one to go?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So I will maybe actually I want to finish asking you a little bit about yourself, and then I have some places we can jump into that in a bit. But I just wanted to know. So you got involved in that project, and we'll talk about that in a second. But now, how did you end up at Caldwell Banker, and what do you do there? What's your expertise? Oops. There, I think I cut out. Am I back here?
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that. My question was, what do you do at Caldwell Banker, and what is your expertise there? Sort of, what area do you work in?
Okay. So at Coldwell Banker, I am considered a licensed realtor, salesperson for real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
I represent sellers to help them sell their property, also buyers to help them find and purchase a property. So I take buyers from getting them pre-approved,
Mm-hmm.
not the lender, but I have relationships with a lot of lenders to get clients pre-approved, taking them from pre-approval, showing houses, getting declined and getting denied, stories and cheering them up like you can do this, all the way to the closing table and finally the keys.
Cool.
It's very rewarding. And then on the selling side, it's a little easier with the selling side because the home sells itself. Your
Mm-hmm.
listing agent, all the other buyer agents will come show the house, and if they like it, they submit an offer.
Mm-hmm.
We take the transaction to closing.
Okay.
I do love my buyers though. You have to have some patience and a love for people,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a big investment for a lot of first-time buyers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like buying a pair of sneakers. You don't like it, you take it back. Once you make that investment,
Mm-hmm.
it's yours. So you have to educate them, letting them know what they're getting themselves into, and just take them step by step through the process.
Mhm. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean that definitely gives you an advantage as a developer, right? Because you kind of have all this experience seeing like projects go from start to finish, start to finish, start to finish, and you can kind of like compare and contrast with what you're doing on your own. So that sounds like you're in a good position to teach us some stuff about real estate. So I'm excited to jump into these conversations. But the next thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of like defining our issue tonight, is failed projects, right? So I think we all have a sense of what failure means in general, but specifically in real estate. And like for a real estate rehab, single family, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to get too specific on what we're talking about, but for real estate, what does a failure mean? What to you, what makes a project unsuccessful?
Yeah, because a failure could be different for every.
Right,
Right?
right.
So a failure to me, because I was a student at Jumpstart,
Mm-hmm.
was not being able to complete the process the way it was taught how Jumpstart operates.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is you find the property, Jumpstart finances the project, gives you that time frame to complete it.
Mm-hmm.
And when that time frame comes, it's not done. And it's like, now what? So I felt as though I failed. And this is funny because, when you're in class and you have that teacher and you fail a test and you're like, oh God, what is my teacher going to say? I felt that way to Ken, right? So,
Right.
and Ken is local, which is great because I had invested in other real estate investing people out of state, but Ken being local, I would see him at Home Depot. And then I would see him at, a store or walking down the street. And like, man, where's the teacher again? I failed. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
So I pinched myself. A lot of you not. I'm at Home Depot because I'm, that's where I stay now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, do I go say hi to Ken? Because I failed. So I pinch myself and I'm like, hey, Ken. And with a nice smile, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he knows because he knows his new loans and what's happening. And I just said, I feel like you're F student in class and I don't know what to say. And
Right.
he said, don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Those
Yeah.
are powerful words.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're in real estate. You will face a lot of things, unforeseen situations, things out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up. And he kept smiling. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, the teacher said it's okay.
Right, right.
So that gave me the motivation to say, hey, you're not a failure.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned?
Mm-hmm.
Embrace it. And how can we now move forward?
Yeah, yeah, and I like that perspective. It's kind of like, did the process go as we thought it was going to go from the beginning? And that's kind of your guideline of whether it's so. And that could be like with the Jumpstart loan specifically, that could be it going beyond the 12-month loan term, right? Or it could be not getting the an adequate ARV that allows you to refinance and pay off the Jumpstart loan, something like that, right? So stuff that like falls outside of the scope of the initial outlook of the project, right? Okay, that's a great answer, and I like that I love that anecdote with. Sorry, I keep on freezing. I hope I'm back here. Okay, am I good? Okay. I love that anecdote with Ken. That's a great example of how Jumpstart I think is different than a lot of other lenders, and it kind of creates this environment for people to understand and confront themselves when they are reaching those issues. So I do want to ask a little bit more specifically about that project, and why don't you tell me like what were the issues you were running into that made you scared to run into Ken, or scared to kind of just come back to Jumpstart and be like, hey, what am I doing wrong? Like what were your roadblocks? What issues were you having?
Um, the actual project itself, what
Mm-hmm.
the issue was there, being still kind of new,
Mm-hmm.
but I just felt like I knew it all, and the graduates, and you probably heard this before, the most hardest thing to come by in real estate and rehabbing, reliable
Workers, contractors. Yeah, I just heard everybody shout labor, right?
Yes, 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 yes. So,
Mhm.
finding a contractor, and let me tell you, I have to be transparent, right?
Mhm.
Always see the guys at Home Depot. You know, you have your different cultures of folks, and some reputation are known to be more or less expensive.
Mhm.
Licensed guy are more expensive. And I'm like, okay, let me just find someone, right? Seriously. I see this guy coming out of Home Depot, and he had a cross on his neck.
Mhm.
And then I saw a Bible in the front of his car. I was like, well, cool. He got to be honest. He drives around with the Bible out.
Right.
Don't do it. If you see the Bible, run. It's like, no, no, no. No, just joking. That's just joking. So
Right.
he was a contractor. He did tell me his expertise, and I'm a person of my word. I just trust that he was too.
Mhm.
He had a license, and because I was new, I should have known what a real license looked like because I don't
Right.
know. He told me something,
Right.
and we started working, and he was a faulty contractor.
Mhm.
So me budgeting the draws, be getting paid, and then he didn't show up on the job. And that was the biggest delay. And it did cost me thousands of dollars for the
Mhm.
project.
Mhm.
However, I had the home that we lived in, my husband and I decided to sell it because we had some equity in it. And
Mhm.
because of that, that equity helped me to get out of the hole to finish Jumpstart.
Gotcha.
Sometimes people's stories are helpful, but then I don't want newbies, graduates to think, well, I don't have a house to sell if I get in a hole. So I don't want you to think it has to be this way. Everyone's story will be different, but the encouragement is don't be afraid if it doesn't go as planned.
Mhm.
Over time, things will happen and get better. You'll
Yeah.
experience, you'll find someone to help you out, and it does get better. So don't
Mhm.
get afraid and be afraid of the horror stories, but
Mhm.
just know everything, there are some unforeseen a lot of times in real estate.
Yeah, and I'm sure all this is especially true for people who are hiring a general contractor or relying on someone else's construction knowledge and everything to get the project done, right? So, yeah, and I mean, I'm happy you brought that up because contractor selection and sort of like I said, if that's the person you're relying on to tell you what needs to be done on the project, especially with Jumpstart's deals that's so focused on budgets and making sure that you did the correct ARV research and comps research and everything. It's like it gets tricky when you're relying on other people, right? So and I know this is like a cheesy question, but knowing what you know now, Donna, like looking back, what was, I mean, is it just inevitable that there's new developers who are going to make, poor choices in contractor selection, or is there something that people can do?
I
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would really recommend, and this is just a recommendation,
Mhm.
to to bring someone on your team with experience. Another earpiece. The mentors through Jumpstart, phenomenal. Um, find a mentor that is like-minded, because sometimes your mentors might be big developers and you're starting small. You might feel a little intimidated, but find someone who you can bounce questions off. I
Mhm.
can text them real quick. Can you stop by the project real quick? Because that is helpful. And just to get another set of eyes and another opinion.
Yeah.
Because when you don't know what you don't know,
Mhm. Mhm.
you don't know,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
It was a lot of I don't know. And I found out after, but that was my learning experience. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not an electrician, knowing series, parallel, and the outlets. I'm not an I didn't know what HVAC was. I was like, is that a kind of vacuum cleaner? Like, what is an HVAC?
Yeah.
um, so you learn as you go.
Mhm.
You, I
Yeah.
and maybe take good recommendations from other developers of some contractors that they may recommend. But if an investor has a good contractor, we don't let them go.
Right. That's right.
It might be nice just to team up, and because my mentor, and I'm grateful for them, they let me tag along. And as I was doing projects, they let their guys do the projects simultaneously while I was learning the
Hmm.
ropes. So just got to find some folks that you could trust. It takes,
Yeah. No.
and relationships doesn't happen overnight.
Hmm.
So it takes time. You've done some work together, develop a relationship,
Hmm.
building trust. So it will take time.
Yeah, and one of the good things about Jumpstart growing and kind of getting to a bigger and bigger community is that there's tons of people who love to kind of regurgitate, just like you, Donna, just regurgitate the info that they're learning and everything. So even if it's not a mentor or even if it's not someone like official that has been assigned to you to kind of guide you through that, like I don't know. There's people. There's other jump starters in every class that might be electricians, but they're not experts on development, right? So you can still ask that person about electrician help. Even though they're not a 30-year experienced expert developer overall. So I think that's a great tip. Is just finding somebody to bounce questions off of. That's great. Um, so my next question, and touching back on what you said about this specific project, is you had that exit strategy, right? Where you thought, okay, well now it's time, where we need to take this alternative route and get more capital to kind of bring this ship to surface, right? What what was the kind of the catalyst that made you seriously consider that decision? Like what was like the point of no return where you were like, okay, I know if we go any further that this is going to get much worse. I need to pull the plug and sell this property. And there could be a bunch of different scenarios where people have to do that. But what would you say was your catalyst for taking that exit strategy?
Um, the the length of time of no movement and
Right.
becoming expensive. You're paying this interest each month,
Right.
being piled up, and I just couldn't make. Well, ends never meet, but it
Yeah.
it had
Essentially, where just like activity stops, right? It's like okay.
that. And one thing too, it's kind of sidebar, but still a part. Jumpstart will allow you to purchase your property in your business name, your LLC.
Mhm.
But what's important to know when it's time to refinance, you need to make sure you are preparing your LLC to be credit worthy to the commercial lenders to refinance Jumpstart. And that was another delay for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So having someone to trust me
Right.
and yep. And that took me a while. But once you get it done, you build those relationships with the lenders and you keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And I know, and I want you to articulate this point more than anybody, but it's extremely important to stay in contact with your lender, right? And to be making sure that they're aware of where you're at in the project and not. And I'm not saying this is what you did, Donna, but there are several examples of situations where people just go silent, and it's like you're only hurting yourself more by shying away. And like I'm so glad, Donna, you went up to Ken in the home table and said, hey, I'm struggling, because that's really hard for people to do,
It is hard.
especially if they are. Yeah, yep, I'm back. I was saying, especially is hard for people if they're brand new to it, right? They're embarrassed and might not feel comfortable admitting their mistakes. But yeah, that's a great tip.
Good thing. And another thing I've learned too is I've heard the saying growing up, a closed mouth will not get fed. And sometimes when you go in silence,
Hmm.
you will beat yourself down mentally. And you're thinking, oh no, everybody eyes on me. I failed. I failed.
Right.
But open your mouth like I did with Ken, it was
Hmm.
like, oh, it's not that bad. There's other people that can help me that's been there and can direct me which way to go. So
Yeah.
in that position, don't close the mouth, communicate. Because once I told Ken I failed, right? And he said, this is real estate. It was much easier now to say, hey, Jumpstart, I need another month. I need another month. This is what I've tried. And then you guys, phenomenal staff, will give me recommendations. try this. Other Jumpstart graduates did this, try this. And it's like a team effort to make sure you succeed.
Right, right. And then also, I mean, you just said this in your answer, but the other thing I think is really important to keep track of for people to be aware of is the length that it's taking between stuff happening on your project, right? It's like, if I don't know. Like there's a schedule, a draw schedule, and like when you're planning the budget, you need things to happen at a certain point, and when that time gets longer and longer, then like you were saying, the interest accrues more and more, and the amount you're going to owe just keeps increasing. So time is of the essence. And hey, if it takes you 11 months and 20 days to finish your loan, hey, that's within the due date. And that's what we that's our whole motto is just we don't want to make this any more difficult than it has to be for you. But yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, so let's jump a little bit, or let's move a little bit more forward, and I want to talk about getting back into it, right? So when that failure does happen, and you do fall short on something, or you reach that point, whatever that may be, whether it be you totally quitting real estate and go back to your full-time job, or you just kind of ignoring a project for a while. How do you kind of kickstart things and get back into it? And I know we just covered a really big one, which is opening your mouth and saying that you're having problems. But financially and sort of like morally, how do you get yourself to kind of restart the engine and get back into a project?
Yep. What I tell a lot of folks too is whatever you're faced with, whether it's real estate, life, or what have you, you have to have a sense of like a self-motivation, like an affirmation to believe like it has to get better,
Mm-hmm.
So if something is so horrible and there's nowhere else to go but up, you can go up, okay?
Right,
You can go
right.
up. So I had to tell myself, like, listen, it can't get any worse than this. And I had a supportive family. My parents, high five to my parents that helped me with this first investment also. And then my husband, who was just like ready to strangle me,
Mm-hmm.
because in marriages, finances could be one of the, number one divorce reasons, right? But once we were able to sell that property and gain some of that equity that we lived in to help us, it was just like a breath of fresh air. We found a new contractor. He was Spanish speaking, but he knew some English. I was up 3 o'clock every morning translating Spanish to English, so he understood the contracts. We were on the same page, and I had a different perspective now moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So
Great.
yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like you have to put yourself in that uncomfortable position that you either didn't know about earlier or weren't ready to make. That's a really good example of, and that might have been a reason you don't choose a contractor. You think, oh well, if they don't speak English, it might be difficult to translate all this. But hey, turns out in the end, that's who got the job done correctly, right?
And with this project too, this was, I think, maybe the second week that rehab was starting. I was sitting outside in my car. The guys were doing demo, the windows were open, and the dust from all the demolition is coming out the window. So I'm like, yes, I'm the boss. They're doing work. This is great. I felt good. You feel good about this.
Mm-hmm.
Then I hear the fire engine. I said, oh, wow, something's going on. And the fire engine should keep going. The fire engine stopped next to my car.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, wait, I thought that was dust coming out of the house. Is it smoke? Is my house about to go in flames? So all this is going through my head, and I'm a new person, right? Did I cross all my T's? Did I dot all my I's? Am I insured? Did I get the right insurance? Did I do something wrong? What did I do? So all of this is taking place. Yes, what happened? They didn't shut all the electric off at the panel box. As they were demoing, they clipped the faulty wire. So when the firemen come, they don't care. They just rip everything off, right? I just got a brand new roof, guys. And here comes, wait, I pulled out a picture. Wait a second, wait.
Yeah.
But
Oh wow.
guys.
Oh, on your brand new investment property, right? Oh man.
But
Yeah.
that day, before you start demo, shut everything off,
Right.
So, thankfully, It was just the smoke, and because of the demo and the smoke, they had to lift some of the roof up so it can all ventilate, but no flames, no one was hurt. And it was a learning experience for me and the contractor. I had to go type it again in Spanish so we can communicate. Safety is so important, and I'm glad no one got hurt, but moving forward, we have to have certain parameters in place.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was my first one.
All right, cool. And sort of, I do want to just, I know it's a hard question, but like, we can't be optimists all the time, right? We have to sometimes be real with people, and people have to be real with themselves about when they're not fit to continue, or it's not for them. Real estate developing isn't a viable option. What do you think? Obviously it's not the case for you, but what do you think people should kind of have to consider in that decision? Like what could be, maybe the signal that I'm not going to move forward with this. I know it's a hard thing, but like one thing I think about is like credit, right? Like if your credit drops to a certain level where you're not going to be able to move forward, or even like secure a lender or anything. I know credit can be rebuilt, but it might be a sign that's like, okay, let me step back, make sure I can get that back on track, and then move forward. Are there any other things you can think about?
Um, you either love it or you don't.
Right.
And if you got to a point ready to give up, but yet someone came in and encouraged you. You saw him. He said, "Don't quit." And it's just little seeds of affirmation or encouragement, and you get this unction, I guess, inside to say, "I can do this."
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is different. I don't know where everyone's quit point is, but I wanted to try again, and I'm gonna tell you, it was Ken 3 words: "Don't give up."
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of, and
Yeah.
that's I think it's so important that I'm always encouraging someone. Like you said, it's good to be positive, but however, what tangible thing can I say? You either going to love it or not.
Yeah, no, I get, and I like that answer, because it's like that should be assigned to you in anything, right? Really, like business or not. If you're not feeling that like fire and that drive to learn how to improve and learn how to recover from a failure, it's probably not the best idea for you. So I like that. Know when you're really like feeling that passion, right? Okay, cool. Well, I guess my last question is sort of just like that the new perspective that a developer can have after failing and returning to a project, and like what are some changes, and I know you've mentioned a couple, but what are some changes that you've made to your process, or that people typically do, like for one, it sounded like you went with a new contractor. That's obviously a big one, is choosing a right contractor. Are there any just like simple things that you've realized now you're like, oh, I do this all the time now, but my first time I had no idea I even had to?
I always give analogies, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, I played basketball, and I learned how to play outside in the schoolyard. Like, whoosh, oh, she good, whoosh. But then when I got into high school and played, the team that always beat us, they have fundamentals and systems down pat where they would win every time. But even though my skill was just as good, I didn't have that system, that fundamental just to say no. You,
Mhm.
you just do, over and over. So I didn't have a system in place when I first started. I was just excited to get approved and I can start.
Right.
So now I look at each project differently. And I think Jumpstart too, that you have a system where y'all look at the numbers better than we do and you say it's not making sense. That is so important
Mhm.
because you already know that it's not going to work, right?
Mhm.
So having a system in place, uh,
Mhm.
that was helpful for me, my system. Also with my contractors, I know what the license look like now. Let me see your license. I am now one of the writers on their insurance policy, different things I learned through Jumpstart. So,
Mhm.
but I still keep the same energy and fun on my sites. I treat my guys to lunch on Fridays, so they enjoy working with me.
Yeah. Yeah, just like tips how to manage a project, right? How like that literally can only come from completing projects in the past, right? So kind of that overall perspective, rather than, oh my god, I'm so excited to move forward on this single project. Kind of learn how to be a realist. Maybe, is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah, and then as the world changes, it changes everything. Like the pandemic, right?
Mhm.
Now prices, lumber, things have tripled in price, changed
Mhm.
the budget. delay on deliveries that
Mhm.
changes, your process. So before you can say, all right, let me just get this kitchen real quick. I get da. Now kitchens, windows take like 6 weeks.
Mhm.
So you have to adapt to what our surroundings are making an effect on your projects too.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Great. Well, before we move on to the Q&A here, we have a good amount of questions entered in. I want to give you a last chance to provide any words of advice. Is there any closing thoughts you have on recovering from failed projects? I mean, it's been a great conversation. We've covered a lot, but I want to give you a chance to throw any last words in.
All right. Like Ken told me, don't give up.
Mhm.
And for me, and you can type it in the chat room, everyone together, embrace the mistakes.
Yes.
Embrace the
Right.
mistakes. Okay. All right. We learn from the mistakes. You learn from your failures. And if you think about a slingshot, right?
Mhm.
Slingshot, the further the slingshot can go is as further back you take it. So
Mhm.
sometimes you might feel like a setback, and it
Mhm.
may just be that projections for you to take off and succeed.
I
But
love it.
you know if you quit. Don't give up, embrace the mistakes.
Awesome. That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Donna. That was awesome. I really appreciate you volunteering your time tonight to talk with us. I think we covered a lot, and I'm sure people have questions. So I'm gonna jump over to the Q&A now. And Donna, I'll just kind of read these off to you and pretend like you're answering to me. But thanks again so much for doing this tonight.
Thank you for trusting me.
And our first question comes from Aaliyah Tull, who I'm assuming is your daughter, and she said, "No, no." She said, "No question here. That's just my mom, and we're proud." So, yes, shout out to the whole Tull family here tonight. Our first question here is about. Actually, there's a couple questions here. People clearly want to know about credit worthiness for refinancing. And Lissa's question is, "How do you set up your LLC to be credit worthy for refinancing? What's that process like?"
So you will have to, if your business is younger than 2 years old, you will have to be that personal guarantor. They will look at you and see if you're credit worthy. And then you may have to find a almost like a private mom and pop type lender, not your big Wells Fargo's, TD Banks,
Mhm.
that will lend according to you showing that your property, what it can produce.
Mhm.
But you in the beginning will be that main person, main personal guarantor that they're looking at. But remember, I said you can't give up because over time, just think, pandemic was 2 years, right? It went by quick. So your business will be 2 years in, showing credit worthy. Stick with it. Keep being persistent and consistent, and then you're going to be a matured business before you know it.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that. I haven't heard anybody recommend that or mention that, but it makes sense. It seems like it's a nice little trick for people to do with their entity when they're setting it up, right? Yeah. Okay. The next question comes from Naima, and they're wondering, what if you have squatters? So I don't know if there's anything you've had experience with or know anything about occupancy in the project before you develop it. Um,
Yeah. Here's another one. Squatters got rights.
yeah.
Yes, they do. I have not purchased anything like that. I have not come across that. I haven't even had friends that had to deal with that.
Mhm.
Well, I have. I might have to say something off record how to get these squatters because you do have. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. Sure.
I pass on that one. On that.
Yeah. Totally.
Sorry, Alyssa.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never want to avoid a question like that. So I'm glad we addressed it. And hey, maybe we can have somebody back for a JUMPinar specifically about that situation. I know we're encountering that a lot more with these PHA lottery projects, that PHA owns. I know we had a JUMPinar covering tenant eviction processes and sort of what that is like, but this is a bit of a different issue. So yeah, I'll take a note down. Maybe we'll have a little bit more of an in-depth JUMPinar on that.
That will definitely be part of your budget because it
Yeah.
costs. So I would just say put that in your budget.
Yeah, yeah, and sort of just like consider the fact that there's financial stuff that comes with it, other than just whatever the legal process is. So yeah, Okay, cool. Our next question here comes from Kedia, and she was wondering, in your opinion, would you suggest setting an extra strategy in the beginning of my project to help minimize the risk of failure? So I know you kind of always had that project, that you could leverage and get yourself out of something, but should people consider that when they're going into a project? Should they need to have a dedicated extra strategy that they're going to fall back on?
Yeah, you always have your ABC plan. Yep,
Mhm.
because A may fail and you have a backup plan. You definitely want to do that. However, I don't want you to have that analysis paralysis type thing where you're analyzing it too much and you don't make a move at all.
Mhm.
Definitely have a backup plan. When I could not refinance at the time, I had tenants move in, and that started to bring in income for the business. And then months later, we were able to refinance. So have a backup strategy.
Okay, great. And other than having a property that you could, sell and or take your equity out in, any other, strategies that you think people could have? I mean, I know like a personal savings or just having, funds available is great, but maybe I know a strategy I hear about is like if you're doing a buy and hold project, right, and something goes wrong or you don't want to rent it anymore, you can sell it and sort of flip it ahead of the refinance process. But I guess that's really it, right?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Okay, got it. So the next question here comes from let's see, moving on. I think Naima again. Yeah, and this one is how do you deal with a property that has been given to you? So I guess an inherited property, but is facing foreclosure and the mortgage company won't work with you to switch information. So that seems like a nitty gritty question. I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer that. Um,
That
and
cannot.
no. Okay, no worries. Yeah, we'll move on to the next question from Lexi here, and she was wondering about your contractor selection for that project, and she was wondering, I guess, how did you choose that Spanish contractor that you ended up with? What was your strategy for finding a new one?
Yep. It was definitely a leap of faith because I didn't know how to select them.
Mhm.
Uh, and I saw their work prior to hiring them. I was at their sites, their current sites, seeing their process and their finished product. They were able to provide the paperwork, the insurance, and licensing. And I had to just try it and develop that relationship. While they love the music while they're working, so I will come in, I'll dance just so they can feel like a good rapport with each other. But when you don't know what you don't know, you don't know. But it was certain parameters and things I had to make sure that were in place, and then try them out. And to this day, we're still all friends. Yeah, they'll call me. I have a select few of them. They're great guys. And then you start knowing their family, and but yeah, it's still a leap of faith. But you have to do your due diligence. If they show you pictures on your phone, I did this, autumn filters. Go to the site,
Right.
okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, and how about now? Now that you do have experience, what strategies do you use to select contractors? Do you have one that you use for every project that you have close to your chest, or that's where it's gotten, right?
Or new.
Nice.
Close.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. All right. Another question here comes from Danelle, and they were wondering, what do you do when you have a picky inspector? So I know our Jumpstart inspectors are picky, and that's for your benefit, right? It's for the borrower's benefit to make sure that you're not overspending or under budgeting or anything. But well, I mean, I guess it could be a city inspector too, right? Who's coming to look for permits and everything. Do
Um,
you have any experience with that?
yeah, inspectors, when you're permits, I wouldn't say they were picky, but they were to the T, you
Mhm.
know? And in my head, play the system. If this is what they need to get you past the property to pass inspection, you got to do it. You have to do it. And they're not doing it to be picky. They're following their protocol. Their name is on that, that they sign. And if something falls back on them, so they're probably covering their tail too.
Mhm.
Just do it. See what
Okay.
sometimes, I bring a Pepsi or something. I don't know. Give them a smile, a Coke and a
No,
smile.
no, no, no. We can't talk. We can't talk about bribing here. All right. So, uh,
What they ask. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So that answers Danelle's question. And I guess Danielle has our last question for tonight. And she was wondering, when planning your budget, should you consider miscellaneous costs too? So I know, like for Jumpstart applications, we look for there to be a contingency cost, right? Which is like a percentage of your budget on top that's like for emergencies only. But what would you consider a miscellaneous cost to be? Do you think that's something people need to incorporate?
Oh, yes. And really, yes, if you are rehabbing Philadelphia homes and not building it from the ground up, expect the unexpected. I
Mm-hmm.
had no clue what a sewer lateral line was. And you're
Mm-hmm.
going to learn about that. That's the plumbing line from the house that goes to the main water line.
Mm-hmm.
That distance of line is the seller's, the owner's responsibility. If there's any cracks in it and it's underground,
Mm-hmm.
you don't see it. You don't even know it's there until someone told me. Then I knew it was there.
Mm-hmm.
Unforeseen things will happen. A cracked sewer lateral line, thousands, thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's going to happen to you all the time, but that might be an inspection that you might want to consider. And it's a simple scope inspection. Some of your guys, contractors, can do that just to check your sewer lateral because you
Yeah.
don't coming backed up. But miscellaneous, when you're redoing these old homes, Philly homes, expect the unexpected.
Right. So it's almost like contingency isn't even the right word for it. It's just like expected additional costs that aren't an emergency that are going to happen, right? Yeah. So I like that. So you should have contingency costs and you should have the miscellaneous costs.
2 days before an open house, I was so proud of this rehab. They were digging up the street, blocked the street off because two houses had cracked sewer lines. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't my house, but they started digging in front of my house 2 days before open house. The day before open house, my basement floods. So
Oh.
what happened? And I'm going down. No, no, no. That was the day before. That was the day that the city inspector was coming, and I knew I was going to pass. And the water was in the basement, and he was like, "What is this?" I'm like, "I don't know."
Right.
So expect the unexpected, and it's just like life. Life happens, and it's how you embrace it. I'm not saying you just brush it off. It does hurt,
Mm-hmm.
but you can bounce back. You can bounce back.
Cool. All right, Donna. That was a awesome conversation, and I think we covered a lot in a short period of time. And thank you everybody for your great questions tonight. It was Again, thanks for volunteering your time, and I hope to talk to you soon. I'm sure we'll see you on loan applications or back for another training session or something. And Donna, can people contact you or get in touch with you if they have any questions or any more motivation?
Yes. How you want to handle that? You want to type
Yeah.
my
Why don't you? Yeah. Why don't I'll send a follow up email so you don't get bombarded or we don't put you on the spot or anything. So tomorrow I'll send a follow up email and you can let me know what contact information you want people to have, and we can link it up that way. But I think that would be great. Hold on, I just saw one more. Oh, yeah, somebody just says thank you, and I say thank you as well. Okay, just a quickly sneak peek on our upcoming Jumpinars. Next week on the first, or sorry, not next week, 2 weeks from now on the first, we're talking about tangled titles with a lawyer, Joe Consul, who's going to be joining us to talk about how to navigate tricky ownership situations and when you're looking to acquire and rehab a project. Later in the month, on the 29th of June, Angie, who's our program director, is going to be discussing Jumpstart Loans 101. So I already know that's going to be super valuable, and Angie is the expert on our pro forma and the application process. So definitely, if you're in the midst of working on a project application or anything, you can look forward to that. Or if you have applied for loans in the past and not gotten approved, this is a little workshop for us to figure out what went on. And then you can see our other two Jumpinars scheduled there for July, and you can register for all those at our events page at jumpstartgermantown.com, so you can get them on your calendar and all scheduled away. And all past Jumpinars are available online at jumpstartgermantown.com/library. You can view the podcast and the Zoom recordings of most of them. And this episode of the podcast will be available probably in a few weeks. If you just search Jumpstart Philly Radio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube or anything, it'll come up with all our past episodes and new ones as they come out. And that's also at jumpstartgermantown.com/podcast. So yeah, that's all we got for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you guys in a few weeks on July 1st, June 1st. All right, thanks so much, Donna. Have a good night, and I really appreciate your time. See ya.